Shalom, Robert.
Hi, Naomi. How are you?
Forgot to put the earplugs in. How are you?
I'm well. I'm back in Panama. Good to see you.
Oh, I'm in Maryland.
We do
How
get
are you,
around, do
Naomi?
we not? Well,
Hi, Robert.
hello. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
Hi, Yehuda.
Hi, everybody.
Yehuda.
Hi.
Nice to see
Hey,
everybody.
Yehuda. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You're back on the bus, huh, Susan? Or you're on the train?
I'm on the bus right now, going to Riviera Health. But before I go
Okay.
see the patient, I'm gonna finish the lesson.
Good for you.
Yeah. It's a miracle that I'm able to do this, I'm telling you. I use
It
my
is, it
phone as
really
my
is a
hotspot.
Right. I agree. It is true. We don't really know who's going to be leading today's class, do we?
Yes, I think.
Rabbi Sachs.
Yeah, but it's going to be Sax's then. Okay. Are you doing it? Are you doing it, Yitzchok?
I hope to. Yitzchok
Cool.
I think, is it Rabbi Sachs? Isn't the rabbi doing Rabbi Sachs today?
Yeah, they were on the bottom of the email for us to review them and print them.
He attached the 4 liberated
Right.
for the following 4 weeks.
Right.
Printed out
Today's is from priest to people.
And here he talks on point on the Parsha, as much as you can get. And I don't know why my printer is not working, so I will have to look at the screen. Okay. He starts with the beginning of the Parsha, I believe. Yeah. Listen to you. He starts
I don't see Isaac anymore.
of the Torah, of this Parsha, with a general command. It says that Moshe assembled God spoke to Moses, saying, so shall you speak to the entire congregation of Israel. How often in the Torah do we think we hear Kol Adas B'nai Yisrael, the entire congregation? This was not a small get-together. This was basically a national assembly. He asked Moshe to assemble every one of the Jews to tell them what? To tell them something that had never been told to a people before.
To be holy.
I'm sorry?
To be holy.
not just be holy, but that you can be holy.
Okay.
The idea is that in every generation, I mean, obviously, there were people who were holy. Every nationality had a priesthood, an exclusive group that was assigned the task of serving whatever there was to serve, and to go through the rituals, to be separate from the nation. But here, Hashem is telling everybody, yes, we may have those that go into the Mishkan, which is basically Aaron and his family, and Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu had free access to the Mishkan. But aside from that, no people had ever conveyed to their own that there was such a thing as holiness. For them, you were the peons, and the people who were serving whatever they were serving, whatever deity they were serving, were, I don't know what the right word to use, I don't want to say peons. I mean, really, basically, it was not attached to an individual such that they should be told that you are all holy and therefore have to conduct yourself somehow. Yes, there's a benefit, but there is also a price. A person who is holy cannot frequent certain places, should not be engaging in certain activities, and has a direct connection to the deity that heretofore had never been really expressed. Let's go. Where you see my screen or you see me?
We see you.
Oh, I was worried. But that is the key, that everybody is invited into this congregation, into the importance in terms of the religion, as opposed to all other deities who had their own separate class, and that was it. Also, Hashem was saying where, and he says it later, that we are to be, if we conduct ourselves properly, and if we act the right way and do what we're supposed to do, we are going to be Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. Those words mean Mamleches, a kingdom of priests, Kohanim, v'Goy Kadosh, and a holy nation. So in essence, Hashem is telling us that if we are to act the way he informs us we should act, we will be, the entire nation will be priests. Priests to whom? Who are we going to be priests to? On whose behalf are we going to be priests? Let's put it that way.
We're going to be priests to Hashem and on behalf of the Jewish people.
Well, are we all priests? So we are all going to be priests on behalf of ourselves?
Yes.
All right, that's a thought. That we are all priests and therefore whatever, I don't know what advantages there are to priests. I would say that the dimension has to be a little broader. Mamleches Kohanim means a mamleches, a kingship, as it were, of Kohanim that we are to be the example for the rest of the world. And indeed, when you look later at a lot of the Nevios, the prophets, the prophecies that they said, when it comes to the times of Mashiach, one, the world will accept Hashem and understand that there is one singular God that controls the universe, and he is involved with us. And they will look to us for the way to serve him. Because until now, it's been a free-for-all. I mean, nations that have gone about observing their lies, observing their made-up customs, observing the stuff that has accumulated over 1,000 years. You look at Christianity and the way that poor religion has been twisted and turned and upside down. They don't know which way to turn in terms of their lahavdil kohanim, their priests. First, it started with, we are graduated Jews. You have to do this. You accept this thought, and you will be a completed Jew. In a way, they're going back to that today, because they're having a tough time getting Jews to convert to something foreign. So they're trying to sell better Jews. But after the 3rd century, the difference between accepting the Old Testament and then totally rejecting it, the whole theory of their religion switched from one of, we are following, the next in the line of the prophets, so you want to come up with the Son of God business. It's a separate problem. But then it came to the point of degrading. The only way they were promoting themselves was by degrading the Jew. That this was the Old Testament. The Jews had been rejected. The Jews are out. This is the new. And so they proceeded along for a little over 2,000 years. And even today, again, now, you look at the pitch that they're doing to the Jews, and it's all, we will complete you. We're not asking you to change your religion, because most Jews have been staunch, I would hope, in terms of hesitating to proceed with a new religion. And that's the way they've been approaching it. And here we learn Hashem is saying, be holy because I am holy and all of you are holy. Now he even goes back a little further, actually. He goes back to Bereshis, where he called the first intimation of the idea of all of us being priests. When he says, he quotes from the Chumash, when the Malachim said, let us make humankind, Nase Adam, B'tzalmenu, in our likeness. So Hashem made us in his own image, and therefore all of humanity is in the image of God. This was something that was also heretofore never really considered. In the idea that any person, all of us, all of humanity, shares one principle. As far as God, we are all in the image of God. Now, whether or not there are other relationships that develop, we learn obviously yes. Now, nowadays, unfortunately, Jews are afraid of looking special, acting special, in the sense of fear of the goyim in terms of how they will respond. And the question is not so much, are you better? I would safely say at any event, do I consider myself better than a non-Jew? And the question that comes back is, for what purpose? Am I entitled to anything more on this planet than anybody else? Not at all. If anything, I wouldn't say condemned, but it has been prophesied that I will always remain a small people, and one that gets knocked around, and one that's in exile, and one that has a lot of work to do to get up to the level that I would like to get. But the point is, I have an aspiration, a continual daily aspiration. Not only daily, but every minute I have that aspiration to reach a certain level that I do not believe that a non-Jew has. There are no spiritual obligations pulling at the non-Jew on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a time-related basis. We grumble under the old Malchus Shemayim, the yoke of heaven, the obligations as we think of them. Oh, it's so hard. And Baruch Hashem, my father never did that. I never came home to hear, Oy, Seshvet Sazan Ayid. Oh, it's so hard to be a Jew. Although a lot of people thought that. I think the only way that I have learned to deal with it is to change the word obligation to opportunity. Now, whether or not I feel it with such fervor at the moment, I'm not claiming that I walk around, walking around with such a fervor every moment, but I've been working very hard on trying to do so in terms of ordinary things. I remember my father yelling at me as a kid, act like a Jew. What does that mean, act like a Jew? What does that mean to you? Saying to a child, even preteen, what are you doing? Act like a Jew. What does that sentence mean to you? Anybody? Yes, Mia. Hi. Okay, good, Jonathan.
Yeah, sorry. It's probably to have a little bit higher moral standards for yourself.
That's very nice, but it's up in the air. You're talking now to a teenager, less than a teenager. I don't think most teenagers know what morals are. Yeah, it's right, it's wrong, I shouldn't.
Try to be a good example to others.
Okay, and how so? In the way you speak, in the way you act on the street. You see a bunch of yeshiva girls walking down the street, and you see a bunch of non-Jewish teenage girls walking down the street. Is there a difference in image?
Yeah, it is, definitely. The way people dress, the way people act, maybe there's a little bit more poise, there's a little bit more self-respect. There's maybe just understanding that because it's such a small nation, it's probably much more visible everywhere where we are. That's why instead of being different, probably being better. That's my kind of idea. Better in any way that you can.
Well,
Become an example, to become a priest of different type of standard of different God. Not different God, but someone who should really become an example to others.
Yes, absolutely. But I would say, in the sense of, and this is what Rabbi Miller talks about all the time, when he talks about Deus Hashem, being aware of Hashem, or even Yiras Hashem, he goes so far that we always say that you have to have Yiras Hashem. And everybody interprets that as fear of God. You have to be afraid. You have to do the right thing or you're going to get punished. And fear of God, yes. But he takes it further even to the point of it's enough to strive to have an awareness of God. If you're just aware during the day, sometimes, that he is there, that already sets you apart from 90% of the people around you. And if that happens a couple of times, I would say I worked with one person years ago. I was a broker on Wall Street 35 years ago. And somebody was asking about wanting to learn more about Hashem and trying to feel a connection. And asked me what I thought he should do. And he knew nothing, never did anything, knew nothing, seemed sincere to want to start, but what do you start somebody off with? And I did not have any kiruv professionals around to work with. So I said, you know what? I am busy just thanking God for everything that I get during the day. If something comes in and I wasn't at the point of even the bad and it's really good, forget that. There are certain things during the day that make you feel good. Thank God for that. Whatever you're feeling, your ability to feel, you don't believe it? Talk to somebody else who doesn't have the ability to feel, or who has nerve damage and feels everything all over constantly. Just picture for yourself, instead of looking for the worst possible situation, look for a good situation out of it. And it was funny, I'm embarrassed to say, but I said the first bracha you should really learn is Asher Yotza. Because I don't know about you, but when I have to go and I finally go, I thank God for that, sincerely. And you can think of all the things that can go wrong with you when you look around you. And as you get older and you watch the problems people have and what they're doing, so even as something as low, supposedly, or as minor, supposedly, you want me to become more observant by saying thank you to God after I go to the bathroom? Yeah. Because that's a time when you definitely feel relieved. Period. Whatever it was, you feel relieved. And at that point, I think it's worth thanking the one who let you feel relieved. And things like that. So you can start with the lowest and just doing that. Once you start doing that in terms of thanking God for this and then thanking God for that. And Rabbi Miller goes about it, and I've become a big fan of his because he gets very direct in terms of actions you can take. To focus and look for ways and things that we can thank Hashem for. And each one of those just makes us think of him through our day. If you're busy working, I don't care what you do for a living. If you can make it, I joked when I first got diabetes when I was 30, 31. So as a diabetic, I was once asked, why did I get diabetes? I said, obviously, Hashem thought that I did not spend enough time, and it's true, making brachos before I ate. Because I was always busy. I was running here and running there and grabbing from here and grabbing from there. I was not very serious about brachos. So I said, to me, this was simply a way of showing me, you got time before you eat. You can check the level of your blood sugar, see where you're at, prepare an insulin shot. Do I feel, someone says, oh, you poke yourself with a needle 3-4 times a day. That becomes meaningless. It becomes automatic. You don't even feel it. Really, a stupid needle. It's, thank God, it's only a subcutaneous injection. The whole thing is less than a half an inch long. It's like poking, and you don't even feel it anymore. But the point is, I used it that way to say, obviously, I got to spend a little bit more time before I eat. And I have, thank God, for 35 years. And if anything, the forced regularity and some of the impositions of being a diabetic helped me. I haven't lost the weight that I really should weight to be ideal. But thank God I've kept it under very good control for 35 years. Does that give me any promises for anything? No. Does it give me any guarantees of anything? No. But I now know I always have time to make a bracha, no matter what. Because I can't put food in my mouth anyway immediately, without looking, without checking. So for me, it gave it a very material way to bring God into my daily trouble. I blame him for my trouble, but I no longer looked at it as a trouble. Yeah, there were times I took too much insulin, I didn't have enough food, I was going to get low. Yes, there are events in my life that happened as a result. But all in all, looking back now, and that's the only way you see Hashem. The only way you can see Hashem is looking back. You will never see him looking forward. You're not going to see the glow on the mountain that attracts you to go there. But looking back at what you've gone through, you get the examples of the way that God has bailed you out 50 times today without you even thinking about it. You walk down the hall, you didn't slip on the floor. You opened the door, you didn't get knocked in the head. You tried to achieve this and you had some success. And it's a way of bringing really Hashem into your life. Now, I can't say it brings Hashem, the Melech Malchei Hamlachim, the creator of the universe, and the one who is in control of innumerable stars, with more innumerable planets, each of with billions of beings and creatures and lands and everything else. But I don't have to think about how does he keep control of me. In some ways, I guess I could say, best I could describe it, is it becomes more of a personal God. I bring him, I wouldn't say a buddy, but he's somebody that I can talk to because he's helping me or he's beating me up or whatever it is, it becomes a much more personal situation than just thinking of him as the one I see when I walk into the big shul. And if I don't walk into the big shul, I don't see him. I don't feel him. I feel him every time I pee. I don't know what else to tell you, but really, it gets reduced to that. And yet that becomes a motivation in terms of other areas. And in a way, it is bringing down, I can't say it, I guess it must elevate me for that, whatever. I don't get into such complex questions. But I do feel at least that I'm making progress. I can't say that I've achieved. How many of us can say we achieve? I mean, certain things we achieved. I'm not denigrating personal accomplishments. There are things I've done in my life that I'm very proud of. A lot of things I'm embarrassed about too. But I'm working on those. And that's the key, I think. When you talk about being a priest for Hashem and be Mamlechas Kohanim, the thing about a Kohen is there was never such a thing as a Kohen just lounging around with nothing to do. Every step in the Beis HaMikdash had to be taken a certain way. And I'm not going to get into the details, but whether to the right or to the left, doing this when you're approaching the Mizbeach and doing this when you're leaving the Mizbeach, and having full attention on what you're doing. So it's very, very, very intense. But the main thing for us is it is a constant level of striving, reaching. We have a goal that can be articulated in a few words. Each one of us would have different words to describe that goal. But in terms of the spiritual, I'm talking now as Jews, we all have a goal to go towards. You ask your average non-Jew what their goal or what their mission is, you'll hear some good things, no question about it. But it's not the same. I'm not even saying better. It's not the same. Our rabbis have worked on texts for thousands of years with no television to interrupt them, with no radios to interrupt them, with no internet to interrupt them. Then you could sit and really study and focus quietly. Think about it, the things we take for granted of having music in the background. This was really unheard of until about 100 years ago. A little more than 100 years ago. If you wanted to have music, you had to have people playing instruments. You had to have an orchestra. Who had an orchestra? So for thousands of years, people lived and walked and worked and ate and drank and slept without any music in the background, without any noise in the background. It was quiet. Try to find such a place today. My father used to laugh at me. He used to walk into the living room and see me laying on the floor doing my homework. So he said, I never saw such a thing. Yeah, but then we had turntables. A record player going over here, and the TV set going over here, and you're sitting with the books. What are you doing? And I said, preparing for the test. Baruch Hashem, I managed to get by. But he was right in the terms of the focus that we spend on things that we do. And I think that's one of the reasons I would propose that is one of the reasons for the great unsettled feeling that everybody has. Everybody feels there's something off. It's not right. These are troubled times. What is it in the air that gives us a feeling of troubled times? And I would say a lot of noise without it necessarily being harmonious. We get noise from people yelling at each other. We get noise from ridiculous TV shows and commercials. Wherever you travel, there's a wave of noise coming at you. Very little of it focused, and certainly very little of it above the needs and demands of that day. In terms of long-term, forget about it. So, as Sachs goes on, it's a not miraculous, but it's a big, big deal that Hashem gave over to us, not just the power, but the right to work within Hashem's limits of inequality. Nobody should be robbed of dignity or of substance or of objects. And the most that we got hit with, and we are engaging in it now, and it's something that I think the Goyim all recognize. What would you say is the one, if you had to say to a person, or if you had to think of something that would define a Jew, or what makes a Jew different than other people? I would think for years, Jews said, oh, look at the day they gave us. People of the
Not book.
book. People of the book. We had a book that we followed and that we focused on and tried to accomplish. And what do we say in the morning? We list all the different mitzvos that we can do. Right? Hapeya, v'habikurim, and then we say the other things you want to do, keep it over aim. These are the things that don't have limits. And there's a whole list in chakras of different things that you can do. And what's the last and major one? The Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Each one of us as a people has the opportunity, use the own word you want, to study all day. Hashem says, you want to open your eyes to the world? Study my Torah. Immerse yourself in my Torah. Any way you want, whichever way you want, immerse yourself. If you're learning true Torah, it will change you one way or the other. It has to change you, even if you didn't know you needed to be changed before you started. That's one of the things Hashem knows that nobody else does. In our class that we were doing last week on Kobos Halavovos, Rabbeinu Bachia gets into what are the key things you need to trust somebody. You want to trust somebody with something. Take care of you, do this for you, whatever it is. He lists 7 factors that a person needs to know before they trust somebody. And this doesn't go just to help me cross the street. This goes to the big issues in life. If somebody can provide this and this and this, and he goes through 7 things, you're obligated to trust them. You have no reason or logical or otherwise not to trust them. And one of those things are not only the power to help you with what you need, the 4th item on his list is, and Kira's heard this so many times he's leaving, which is okay. The 4th thing on his list is to know even more than you do what you need. He is able to satisfy your need, but also has enough knowledge to know more as to what you will need or do need. And that is something that no person, to some limit, a person can do it. A person can do it. They're giving you medicine. They know they can only give you so much now, and you take and you move on, whatever. But the idea, Hashem says to us, study my Torah. Now, what is Torah? You ask 50 rabbis, they'll get 100 answers. But I think the key is whatever it is that interests you to get started. If you need to start somewhere outside of your daily practice, obviously, we all need to work on things to do to improve our daily practice. Yeah, I have to learn to wear a yarmulke so I don't walk around bare. I have to learn not to eat a ham sandwich, things like that. But outside of that, you pick the area of Torah that you want to learn. And you want to talk about being blessed. Never before in human history have humans been able to access information that they want and need easily. Every time I do a search on the internet, I think back to Brooklyn, where I had to walk I was short, I was right near the library, but 3 blocks to get to the library to look at a reference book that would point me somewhere that I would then have to start looking around for hours. I used to like those walks, actually. There was a bakery right next door to the Brooklyn Public Library. It was great. When I was homesick, my mother said she used to go back and forth carrying 4 books in the morning and then 4 more later in the afternoon. It was hard. Nowadays, you pull it up on the screen in a minute. If you can't, you order it from Amazon. It shows up tomorrow, delivered to your door. Something to think about in terms of the opportunities that we have that were never given to people before. Never given to our parents, and they were saints going through what they had to go through. Certainly never before to our grandparents. You want to go one more generation, you're not even going to picture what is where or when, how. I mean, unless you come from a family of counts and dukes and duchesses, so you can point at the yichus you have in terms of the generations. But in terms of personal opportunity for what we can do, not even for what somebody can show, what we can do for ourselves. And I would say this, you have a favorite area that you like to know more about? I was once into the Beis HaMikdash. I just wanted to imagine. I like to imagine myself in these places. So I ended up getting books on the Beis HaMikdash, the old one, the middle one, the new one. I got models here, whatever it was. But it was something I tried to plow through to get an idea of it. You want to know, somebody took on a project of learning about tzitzis. Tzitzis had been the blue tchelas that we wear with string, the one blue string that you wear. The secret of that had been lost for 1,500 years. At the time of the second destruction of the temple is when we lost it. The knowledge, everything got wiped out. How and why? Because to the Romans, Tcheles, that blue was a royal blue that should only be on the clothing of royal people, important people. And therefore it was outlawed for Jews to wear Tcheles. And as a result of that, for a few hundred years, the whole history, the whole secret, the whole thing of doing it was hidden away. I went to a shir here 15 years ago, with the guy who discovered the new, what they use now for tcheles, gave a talk. And he was saying the difficulty was they sort of knew the snail that was used for tcheles. They think so. They thought they knew, because they were congregating there in the Mediterranean, and it seemed like a likely one. The only problem was, the big problem for a long time, that nobody could accept the and it was called the trunculus. I forget the name of the snail. It'll come to me. The problem was when you squeezed it out and the ink came out of the gland, it was purple. And the Torah says specifically blue. Tcheles is blue. The rabbis even say, why do you wear tcheles? You see the blue of tcheles, you think of the blue in the sky, which makes you think of the blue of the sea, which makes you think of the blue in the sky, which makes you think of tcheles, which makes you think of the kisei hakavod, and Hashem sitting on his throne. That was the mental process they were describing from tcheles. Ain't purple. As a matter of fact, there's another word for purple in the Chumash. Anybody? Argaman. When you see the list of the equipment of what they used in the Mishkan, you'll see tcheles, the argaman, the tulah shani, a red string, and shesh was another kind of fabric. It was blue, not purple. And he mentioned this one day on a boat ride with the Greek sailor who was taking him in the water. And he was saying, they're looking for this, whatever. He goes, but this can't be it because it's purple, not blue. And the sailor looked at him quizzically and said, what are you talking about? He took a little bit of the sap, smeared it on his arm, and stood there on the bow of the ship in the sunlight. And in the sunlight, you know what color it turned? A brilliant, brilliant blue. It's the kind of blue that you don't see anywhere in fabrics. It's a unique, a royal blue that seeps into the fabric and stays. You're talking about long-lasting dye that stays forever, for all I know. So that's where you saw it was blue. You need the magic of the sunlight added to it to make it tcheles. So you can find lots of things to understand why. And the books are there in English, in Hebrew, in Spanish. There are tapes now. There are videos now. I spend most of my day listening to like Torah Anytime. And I'm amazed that people can get work done because of what's around. I'm not binging on Hulu, I'm sorry. But there is so much that you can have fed to you easily. It just takes a little desire, just a little bit. Because once you start with that little, you say, "B'derech she'adam roitze l'lefes," again, low. The way the person wants to turn, Hashem takes you there. You want to do this? Hashem helps you. You can't bury yourself, but Hashem will be there with you and help you out of it too. So it's really, and everything is focused that way. There is nothing that happens on its own. Everything, you can learn this in Kabbalah, you can learn this in Musar, you can learn this anywhere. Everything requires a start from us. Not a big start, not a big leap, but a little turn. They say Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Jews being led out of Egypt, came about through whom? Who led the Jews? Who led the Jews out of Mitzrayim? Moshe Rabbeinu.
Moses.
I don't want to make everybody have to bother to unmute. Moshe Rabbeinu. How did Moshe get called? How did Moshe get chosen? Let's do that. That's a good one. How did Moshe get chosen? We just finished Pesach and the story and everything else. How did he get chosen? Did he get called? Did he get a voice in his head? Moshe, Moshe. No?
At the burning
I think
bush.
it is.
At the burning bush.
What do you mean at the burning bush? Let's take it slower. What do you mean at the burning bush? He was walking down the road or across the field with one of his little sheep
Right.
that he was herding for his father-in-law. And he saw a bush burning. And he did something that nobody else in the field or on the road had bothered to do.
He stopped and he looked at it.
He stopped and he looked, and then he said, "Whoa, what is that?" And he took a few steps towards it. And that was it. That's when Hashem said, "Stop. You're standing on holy ground." And that was his introduction to God. That was his introduction to his future and the Jewish future. He took the 2 steps and said, he didn't even have an answer. He had a question. He didn't come up with a bright answer that qualified him. He said, what in the world is that? The thing is burning and it's not burning. I see flames, but it's not burning. And that's what started it. And that's what always starts it. You get into Kabbalah also, you learn. You need, obviously it gets more complicated than that. You start with a desire, a thought, or a desire within you, and then you act on that desire, whether it be speaking or doing or whatever. But the point is we have to take that little step, and you're going to go through 100 of those a day. You want to work more on kosher, you can, look at what you got in the fridge and decide whether you really need it or not. Small thing. Or you want to get involved in learning Gemara, you can take a class on learning in the right way and the way to approach the Gemara and learn it. These are all little steps. There's a famous thing in the Gemara that there was an argument. I don't know if I said this to this group. There was an argument between the rabbis, which is the most important sentence in the Torah? What would you think if you had to sum up the key sentence in the Torah that really says it all and gives you the key thing you should keep in mind when you're going through your day and to help you through life? What one sentence would you say in the Torah does it? Well, one rabbi said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That's the one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. He's our God, and he is only one. Another rabbi said, no. V'ahavta l'reyecha kamocha. As a matter of fact, we all know the story of the heathen who came to Hillel and said, teach me the Torah while I'm standing on one foot. And he said, what is odious to you, whatever is unwanted by you, don't do to your friend. Which is the inverse. Because the V'ahavta l'reyecha forces you to want to like somebody. The other one goes from the approach of whatever I don't like, I won't do to you. It's a whole different approach. It sounds like the same thing, but it's not. So that's the second one. Not Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, but V'ahavta l'reyecha kamocha. Also sounds like a contender. Ben Pazi says, Es hakeves ha'echad taseh baboker, v'es hakeves hasheni tase bein ho'arboyim. The first lamb should be offered in the morning, and the second lamb should be offered every afternoon. He said that's the most important sentence in the Torah. And the other two agreed with Ben Pazi and said, you are right. How is that the most important lesson you can learn from the Torah? As hakeves ho'echad tasa b'boker, one lamb you should do in the morning. It talks about the carbon tamid every day in the Beis HaMikdash. They brought one little young lamb in the morning and one little young lamb at the, nothing was brought before the first one, nothing was brought after the second. How is that the most important lesson you can learn from the Torah?
Because that's recognizing that everything comes from Hashem.
That recognizes that everything comes from Hashem?
Yes.
You have to bring a lamb in the morning and you have to bring a lamb in the afternoon. Oh, I guess you got to get the lamb from Hashem, but I don't think your otherwise worldly person who is just looking at that understands that to be the essence of Judaism.
I believe that it's just simply a way to express that it's a process. It's a process where it cannot stop at the end of the first one, it has to continue. But my question is actually a little bit different, because in this article, it's not only an explanation about self-improvement, which you are talking about, and you are completely right, that you could find so much wisdom and so much information in Torah that is definitely very, very important, and it gives you answers to many questions. But it has to be the second part, which is described in this article, that it has to be not only taking, but given back. And I think it really gives you a very good explanation. First of all, they're talking about so-called democracy, which is, in my opinion, extremely important, especially for us, people who live in democracy. Maybe to you, it sounds a little bit too kind of, high-spirited word, but for us, people who know a different way of living, it's extremely, extremely important part, which I found in this article very, very pleasing and very important. And second, I believe that one quality that really is taught by Torah and very special for Jews in general, it's just the compassion. It's something that we feel regardless of revenge or all other reasons of bad feelings about certain historical facts, or I don't want to, to bring any more examples, but the feeling of being fair, to treat people with fairness, to treat people with love, which is very well described in this article, is very, very interesting. And I think that it's not only what you do for self-improvement, but how you share this with others is as important. And that's what I found in this article, really well described.
Well, a lot of the self-improvement we're talking about relates to how you behave with others. That's why I said, what do you mean act like a Jew? Thoughtful, not yelling off and getting angry. Why not? Because a guy will say, well, how can you not get angry? Simple. I know that I'm not in control.
Yeah, I truly believe that the feeling of anti-Semitism, a big part of it is this feeling of jealousy that maybe not too many people are capable of doing it. And I was really surprised that just part of my family are traveling right now in Asia. And my daughter was saying, I was really surprised that in Cambodia, people are very, very morally kind of on a higher level. I said, why? She said, because the same principles that we are talking about, do not steal, do not kill, do not, do not act toward your neighbor with really anger or bad feelings. She said, it's promoted so much that you feel it in people's behavior. That's a yes. You asked me, how could I tell if this is a group of Jewish kids versus kids who are maybe of different religions? It's not only self-example. I think they kind of promote a higher level of acting. But in my opinion, like I said in this article, it's more tools how to use it, not only to improve yourself, but how to make a world around you better. It is very interesting. It was interesting to me.
And the way he goes is the incredible beauty of Yiddishkeit is that through the history, through the thousands of years since the Torah was given, we went through horrific national disasters. When you think about it, millions of us slaughtered, exiled from a land, spread out amongst the countries, ejected from every single one that previously took us in, constantly being rejected and brought back and rejected and brought back. He says the brilliance of our history is that even when we had a Beis HaMikdash and we had services and practices and korbanos, we still had something where 3 times a year everybody came together. And the learning of Torah became the one thing that a lot of the Goyim says, you have it in the Bible, you got all these rabbis. Yes. If you got a book from heaven in a strange language and you wanted to understand it, or from the sky, from Martians, whatever, you would take people and study it and try to understand every letter and where it comes from and how does that work and how does the connection work. If you start off looking at this as some garbage fairy tale, then you don't spend the same time to look for connections and to understand and get into the magnificence of the complete whole. You point to one thing, yeah, what about that? What he says at the end is what's truly remarkable is how you went from a temple with priests and korbanos and dues and visits and everything else to a point where it became democratic. I don't like that word, but it got spread because democracy is ruled by the mob. That's all it is.
No, it's a different meaning of this word. It's completely different.
I'm saying democracy itself is a very dangerous thing. Baruch Hashem, we live in a republic, not a democracy. It's a big difference.
We are not talking about political system. We are talking about the meaning of the word. You know, every word can be interpreted in a very different way. But this is democracy simply means it doesn't belong to one small group. It's not the elite possession. It is something that can be really divided. And
masses. Yeah. We have the same thing, but we say it doesn't belong to one group, and we take it one step further.
Right.
Somebody says, "What do you I don't know which way to turn. I got this problem. I don't know which way to turn." I said, "I've always found that when you don't know which way to turn off." Instead of looking around the different directions and trying to figure out where it's coming from, turn up. And that's where it is. And even if that means you just stopping to think about it and reflect on it and think about how would your father do it? How would your mother do it? How would your Rebbe do it? I think is what gives us the polish that makes us different than everybody else. So, woo! I didn't know how I was going to fill a half hour. We went an hour. Baruch Hashem. Any other questions, fights, arguments?
Can you please send us the 7 factors that you mentioned in your explanation? It's really interesting. If you can find it and email it, at least to me, if you can, I would really appreciate that. Because I think trust is a huge thing.
I will tell you what. Here it is. I mean, he lists different things, but I'll put it into the chat box.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
But this is just his list. This list takes 30, 40 pages.
No, I understand. But at least the thesis, at least, the main ideas.
These are the 7 things that you need to have in order to trust somebody. This is conditions for trust. If somebody can satisfy all of these, you have no reason not to trust them. Yes, Robert.
I think is a way that you can make them into a PFD and they can be forwarded to us. So the chat box is a transitory process for most of us.
I do have it. Let me just.
That'd be great. Thank you.
But I don't know your email address.
Well, the rabbi can send them off to us.
Fine. I will
Okay,
send it.
that would really be great. And you do a significant amount of investment, and I really, as Anna said, really appreciate everything that you do. I really appreciate it.
And it gives us an opportunity to reassess our own understanding of certain things.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I encourage and want the back and forth. That's the point.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes if I seem frustrated, as everybody's sitting and nodding, I'd rather somebody had a problem with me and argued it than just sitting there going, yeah.
Let me ask you this question. We just got the email from Rabbi. I looked at it earlier this morning. So there are 4 or 5 PDFs for the coming weeks, including this week. If we know that you're going to be the one who will be leading it, and we know the date, then most of us can be better prepared to respond to it. Part of it is like we're reading it as you go along. We've not integrated it yet.
Well, now you have weeks ahead of time. I'm sorry.
Right, we got it. But as long as we know on Tuesdays, what is today? Monday, Tuesday. On Mondays, we'll be, working with you for the Sachs, readings. Then we know what the rhythm of the programs are going to be. That's, I guess, what I'm saying.
He said he wants to do. He wants me to run the Monday afternoon program.
Perfect.
He
All right.
runs all the morning programs. I don't know who he has other people for the afternoon on Hasidus.
Right, Estrin, right, and others. But now that I know you're coming on Monday, I'll have to be at the afternoon programs. That's all. That's all.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. That's why all 5 PDFs that we received will be conducted by you. Is it right?
I will send you the PDF with the 7.
We got the PDF. I just want the PDF of what you just enumerated. That's all right now.
We will be teaching. That's what.
Yeah, that gives us some, understanding the regularity of our meetings with you.
What? Thank you very, very much.
Great.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
All right, everybody take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You too.